Hey guys, welcome back to Saadelive, where this is our weekly podcast where we go through all the recent stuff and we talk about stuff that's going on and we just kind of let loose. We go over some articles and kind of what the deal is right now, what I think about what's going on right now, and it's chill. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the first one is one that swept right under my nose, and that's that Disney confirms to release 3 new Star Wars movies between 2026 and 2027. And this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. I was like, because when they rush things, it never turns out good. And we've seen that time and time again. The fact that, Mando and Grogu is going to be totally shot and put together and have had VFX done on it and everything by 2026 is already kind of weird, because that means they're only editing for a year. So unless they have incredible efficiency, and not only that, they have to do 2 other movies to release in between, that same time period. It's just kind of weird to me. I don't know how on earth they're going to be able to do that. But, props to them if they're able to put together 3 movies at once. I just don't understand. So what, is Dave going to be going ping-ponging between 3 movies? I don't understand how that's going to work, That's just really weird. But as we know, Dave doesn't really care about the quality of what's put out. He just... I don't even know what he does, to be honest, because he's not doing his job. I really don't think he's doing his job. Because he's supposed to have creative input on things. I don't think has any of it, to be honest, because he's just letting in everything. As we saw, he let in the Acolyte. He's just letting in everything. It's I don't know what his deal is, and supposedly he's had this role longer than he has, officially. So he's pretty much had the role for a year or 2 before it was announced as CCO. So that means he let through Mando Season 3. He's let through so much stuff. I don't really understand, again, what the deal is. Or if it's Kathy. But another thing with Kathy is that she wants to retire, which is great. And I'm very glad that she's wanting to retire. And I was very excited. I'm like, please get out of my franchise, right? I'm like, dude, move out. You're clearly not the right person for the job, and we could use someone who isn't a complete idiot. And compared to Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, I think, is much better at his job than she is. That doesn't mean, he's not great. As we know, he's not good, to be honest with you, and he lets in everything. But I'm not sure how much of that is due to Kathleen Kennedy's influence, because he does have barely any of a spine. And I don't know how much that's him. It's I don't know the total balance of things, so that would be really, really interesting to see. And I'm excited to see, how that turns out when she actually leaves, which it seems like I'm hoping soon. Because she's waiting for a win, as her send-off. That big financial win and, a really successful project. That's what she's, I guess, waiting for before she retires. So, knowing how Disney Star Wars is, I don't know when that's going to happen or if it ever will happen again. I assume there will be something that's at least decent, like The Mandalorian or Tales of the Jedi, that's released at some point in time. But I don't totally know when and if that's ever going to be soon, with this leadership. And I think the only reason there'd be a win is once she's gone. So if she really wants that win, she better get out now. I'm going to be honest with you. That's the only time that she could possibly get a win, because she just mucks everything up, as we know. She just gets in there and messes everything and makes everything a complete and total disaster. Now, it wouldn't be unlikely, for Disney to hire some other random person to do the job, and that wouldn't surprise me if they hire some other, random female, CEO to run Lucasfilm, because they need to have, their diversity standards. That wouldn't surprise me if they did that. But at the same time, I feel like they could just throw Dave in there because they think that, they know that the fans appreciate him at least a little bit. So that's a possibility that they could throw Dave in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did so. At the same time, so it's like either of those things, which is what's gonna happen. It's gonna be Dave, or it's gonna be what's it called? Some other random lady. That's really what's gonna happen. And what Jon Favreau, I would say, maybe him too, but he stepped away from Lucasfilm because of the way Kathy treated him. That's why Mando season 3 was so bad and rushed, because she basically said, I need it done in like half a month. I need everything written, and it was just too fast for him, and he couldn't wait and actually make a good script like he did for the first 2 seasons. So he was rushed and had to basically pump something out super fast due to her pressure. And she's also the one who pushed for Grogu to reunite with Mando and Boba, and that screwed him over, and now he's over it. So rumor has it Mando and Grogu is going to be his like kind of Star Wars finale, and then he's just going to really step away. But who knows? Maybe if it's, really well done and he comes back, he might want to come back, and maybe that position would be open to him. Because I feel Jon Favreau, he's much more of a leader than Dave to me. Like, I get this sense of, just firmness, and he knows what he's doing, and he knows Star Wars pretty well. He's worked with George directly for Clone Wars, and I feel like he really understands things, and he knows the world decently well. And again, the reason why Book of Boba and Mando season 3 were not good was not fully his fault. It was Kathy. It really was, and it's not just an excuse. It's come out that it was Kathy, and that she meddled with his stuff, and he got really irritated. And he actually was going to leave after Boba Fett. That's what I heard from people. But then he just decided to stay on through Mando. But he is not happy over there. He really, really is not. But, when you have someone who made Iron Man and Iron Man 2 and, The Jungle Book and just all these just objectively incredible films, and then he makes Mando season 3, it makes you wonder, this can't be him, and that's what I was thinking the whole time. I never doubted him. I was like, okay, this is, maybe for a second I was like, what is going on? But then I realized this is definitely not him. There's no way this is Jon Favreau, who made one of my favorite movies of all time, Iron Man. I was like, there is no way. And I think this just proved it. It is her. It's just funny. But I think Dave should just be fully in charge of, I can't even say that anymore. I don't know, man. It's like Dave just has lost my trust completely. Like in the last couple, years, man, that guy just completely lost my trust, man. I used to think he was like the next George. He's the apprentice. He's this and that. But the crap that he's just allowing, I just don't understand. But now I'm thinking maybe it is Kathy. Maybe it is her trying to push, because she is the, whole Force's female person. So there's a high chance that she is the one pushing all the, agendas and stupid BS and act like. We know that she's the one who wanted to hire Leslie Headland. So, and Dave's name, I don't think is in the credits. So there's a chance that was kind of Kathy's thing. And I hope he tried to argue with her, but I know how she, it's just, we don't know, I don't want to point fingers before we totally know, but suspicion for me is raised on Dave. On there's a level or a point you can go, with something, and then once you pass that point, it's like you got to just start wondering what's going on and having discussions that I haven't heard of. And I got people in Lucasfilm, 1 or 2 sources. One of them's account got taken down recently, which was not good, because he was really good. The other one, he's been on and off. And then, of course, there's all the other ones on all over social media that people talk about themselves and have their own sources. But, I haven't heard anything about Dave, trying to fight back against her crap or she beating down on him. Like, I don't know. That's the thing. So I'm completely blind on that situation. But she just is such a problem. She screwed this company over tenfold because back in 2015, pretty much everyone who had seen the movies called themselves a Star Wars fan, and it never doubted their mind. It was cool to like Star Wars, to an extent. You'd still get crap if you, were too into it like me, but it wasn't to the same extent. Where everyone still saw the new stuff and everyone, it was still very much in the general, like, it's the best franchise in the world, etc. at that point in time. And then every single project they released, other than a few, just kind of lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered and diluted and diluted and diluted, and to the point where it didn't feel special to go see the new Star Wars thing anymore, because it had just been run over by this massive train, which is Kathy, and she just smushed all of the, like, kind of gold out of the, I guess, bag, the sack in the middle of the track. All the gold just flew off to the side, and now it's just this empty, run-over sack of made of who knows what, just sitting there smushed. And we need some person to go get that gold and put the gold back in the sack and stitch it together in order for it to become gold again. And that is a very hard task, especially now with the reputation Star Wars has and Lucasfilm has with making just garbage content all the time. That's all thanks to Kathy, and people, as much as you might say, oh, it's Disney, it's this, it's that, it's Rian Johnson, all fingers point to Kathy because she's the one allowing all of it, Her and Bob, they're the ones approving everything. She is CEO of Lucasfilm, so she has a level of power above Bob, and Bob doesn't care. He just wants to make money, so he just listens to her. That's the thing. And she's the one making all the calls because she's the CEO. That's what people don't understand is Bob has made stupid decisions with Disney, but she has been the one to make all the calls for Star Wars. It wasn't Bob saying, oh yeah, let's hire Rian Johnson. No, that's her. She's the one who also wanted to hire Leslie. She's the one who wanted to hire and approve all these just abysmal books and High Republic, and Bob has nothing to do with that. He just sits back and watches, and the only time he comes in there is when there's something that doesn't make enough money for his, liking. Then he will do something, but that's Bob's job. He's just keep the money flowing, right? That's all he does. Kathy's the one approving everything in Lucasfilm. So, she is the one who let Rian Johnson into a Star Wars movie without him proving that he knows Star Wars well. Same with Leslie. She didn't go into that at all. She just let it happen. She's like, oh, you're a great filmmaker, so you're a great Star Wars filmmaker, and there's a difference. I wouldn't necessarily want Martin Scorsese making a Star Wars movie because I don't know how well he knows Star Wars. Maybe he doesn't know it at all. Maybe he does. He's friends with George, so perhaps George has kind of enlightened him with some of the ideas of Star Wars or something, but his style doesn't fit Star Wars, and that's, George has said that himself, that, him and Francis Coppola and him and Scorsese, they're totally different kinds of people, to where him and Ron Howard are similar, and that's why Solo had such a Star Wars-y tone and it was so well done, was because, Ron Howard and George constantly communicate. They're really, really good friends, and they have a similar style. That's why it felt so much like Star Wars, and it felt new and different. And that's why I loved it, because it felt like real Star Wars, and it felt like something new and something that wasn't, diluted and screwed up. It felt like legit Star Wars to me, and that was really cool. And it didn't run over a certain aspect of Legends either. And, that was, I know that was, Ron doesn't probably care about that, but whoever was in charge of lore or whatever on that set, I don't know, it just didn't run over anything. I know Han's origin story is different in Legends, but it wasn't super deep, I don't think. So, whatever they did with Solo, it just worked, and it felt like Star Wars, And same, Rogue One, it replaces Kyle Katarn's, story in Legends, but that's what happens. They reset the timeline, and it's gone, right? It's just they were stupid, and this is all stuff George approved of, by the way, which I have 20 plus screenshots of proof saying that George was in charge of everything produced under Legends. If you want them, if you're saying George never liked it's like, no, that was a spoof with Robot Chicken when he said, I want you out of the song. That was all a joke. People don't understand that, but anyways, my point being is that even though it was not, it didn't follow that same story, if you reset a timeline, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do something different, right? So if they made that dumb decision, instead of just continuing on with what George approved and made, and really what I think they did that for money so they could pump out more content, you have to, make a different story. And what they did worked, and it worked really well. And I really appreciated Rogue One. That's the reason why it's up here. Those two are up there because I approved of them. I loved them. I thought that they were a great addition to Star Wars. Vader was done perfectly in Rogue One. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations. It kind of worked. That's the one line that I was like, but I feel like it was done in a way that was purely menacing and wasn't meant to be comedic. It just, like, the way he delivered it. It just felt like Anakin's, cocky ego kind of boosting out of Vader for a second there. And setting Krennic in his place. So I feel like it kind of worked, but it's not perfect. I probably wouldn't have done that, written that, but it's fine. I don't, it's not that big of a deal to me. But yeah, Vader was done flawlessly pretty much in that, movie. And they knew not to put him against the main characters. It's just, they really did him well, and that was great. And they made new original characters that I actually liked and I thought were cool. But unfortunately, they all did die, which again was a good thing because you can't have too many stragglers around that, would be crucial to the rebellion. If you save the Death Star plans and you're just floating around, why would they not be in the original trilogy, right? And Disney would have them interacting with Luke Skywalker and all of that because they have to push their new characters and everything. For Legends, Kyle kind of went on his own into a different, part of the galaxy, different, situation. But yeah, so Rogue One, again, was done well. But this is what I'm saying. When you hire the right people and it works, it works. And that's what I'm trying to tell them. No, they're on nowhere near George's movies. That's not even I'm not going to be like, Rogue One is just up there with the 6. I'm not like one of those people, that's like Filoni faithful. Nah, bro. Like, they're not. Just like Ahsoka was pretty well done. The stab was stupid, but again, it's one stab. It's not that big of a deal. And the Force push was also stupid, but again, I could see it coming, and it's Disney. And again, not that big of a deal. It didn't wreck the character of Sabine in any way. It just made me, it's I don't know. It just wasn't, for some reason, the good in that show outweighs the bad to me. It's not as good as Rogue One and Solo by any means. It's not as good as Mando. So it's just like on the higher end of Disney Star Wars products to me, but it just made that curve. But if it were just the first 6 episodes, it would be up there with Mando, and with Rogue One and Solo. But unfortunately, it kind of derailed on the last 2 episodes, and I have no idea, like, what the heck they were thinking. Dave was thinking, because that is what I'm talking about when I mean Dave's trust. Like, because that was his show. That's like his baby, you know, like it's 1,100% him. As much as The Last Jedi was 1,100% Ryan. You know, like it's the same level of like creative freedom that they add on those projects. And, you know, it made me question, you know, how much Dave actually gets what George said about the Force. And, you know, George has said they don't know how to use the Force, right? And whatever. But yeah, Ahsoka was fine. I loved those first 6 episodes. I really did. And I was like, dude, we needed this. It's been so long. And then the last 2 episodes, I was like, well, there goes the first pure Star Wars show since Mando, you know, like, yeah, that was a tragic end to a great start, you know, like really, especially, you know, the 5th episode of that was incredible. But yeah, so Ahsoka is fine. Again, Dave was in charge of that. So, again, I think that proves that, again, when you hire people who understand the story to run something, great. They didn't destroy any Star Wars lore, which was great. And I actually really appreciated that they didn't, you know, throw in some garbage. But it didn't feel like Star Wars, but as a show on its own, it was, you know, was solid. You know, as a show on its own, it was really well written, lots of great character development, lots of great plot progression, but it's just too slow, and doesn't have the pace of Star Wars, doesn't have the feel of Star Wars, doesn't have the look of Star Wars, and it's just not, you know, it's not there for me. I wouldn't put it in the same category as Rogue or Solo. And yeah, you know, most of the people who say they think Andor's the best Star Wars show, you know, that's fine. Like I said, I don't have a problem with it, but it makes me question, you know, how much they kind of get the franchise, you know, because it's like so not there, you know, that not Star Wars to me. And you can't really argue it is. If you argue it is, I can end that fight immediately, you know, like that's just not true. And most of them don't even say that. They're like, oh, I like that it's different. And it's like, okay, you know, that's fine. I guess that's not fair to say, you know, I question how much they know the franchise. Because they could just really vibe with it, you know, and really just like the feel. Okay. You know, I liked the feel of it. I liked the, you know, political thriller, dark feel. That's like kind of my style of project, just much quicker at a faster pace. But I wouldn't necessarily make that in Star Wars, you know, because there is a certain level of kind of light you need to Star Wars, and it can't be too dark. Even Revenge of the Sith, right? They cut the youngling scene out. All the emotional scenes, they don't drag on too long, right? There's like a lot of things that it still feels really dark and, you know, gritty, but it's not to the extent where Andor was like depressing, you know, like there's a stern difference there. It's like, yeah, it was really sad, you know, Revenge is really sad and it's a tragic story, but it ends on hope, as all Star Wars projects should. And, you know, I don't know, it's just, Andor is in the gray area. Like, that's one where if you love it, I don't judge you. And if you hate it, I don't judge you. It's just one of those where it's so just like out of the franchise that I don't care, you know? Where if you love The Acolyte and you think it follows Star Wars stories so well, that's when their questioning begins, because it doesn't follow the Star Wars story, and that's the objective truth. You know, it doesn't follow George's vision, but I don't want to go into that again. Please. That would just infuriate me. I don't... But yeah, so my point being is, I gave all those examples, and I really wanted to dive into them because we've had all these different people who have made good Star Wars products, and you can kind of compare and contrast their pros and their cons, and imagine if they all just worked together. That would be insane. Like, genuinely, Dave could provide the stuff, the super, deep lore stuff and the stuff having to do with, I don't know, all that kind of, I want to say the Force, but then he did that thing in Ahsoka, but I guess just the overall plot of Star Wars and what would happen with what character. That's kind of what Dave's good at, because he did Luke really well, and that's great. So I think he definitely, be good at like continuing character stories without destroying them, and he'd make sure it feels exactly like where we left off with the character, at whatever point of time. And I guess the feel of Star Wars, the pace, like Dave has all that down. And then Gilroy has like the amazing like writing skills just in general. And then Ron Howard has that connection with George, where he just really has that George feel, kind of more than Dave does. And then we could even throw John in there, and John could be kind of the leader to hold all the troops together, and if you add all of them, and maybe Gareth Edwards, honestly, I can tell like the genuine passion he put into Rogue One and directing and knowing how characters would talk and move, and that it wasn't perfect, spot on, but it was pretty good, so for direction, he would be a good add-on there. So you meld all those guys together, and that's like really good, like amazing Star Wars, and that's wonderful. But they'll never do that because they don't want to bring back old creators. They just want to get new creators with every single show, which then creates a crap ton of inconsistency, and I think that's the biggest problem right now with Star Wars, is there's way too many like people making it, and it should be like 4 core people that kind of oversee everything, because that way it stays consistent, and 4 very well versed people too, not some Joe Schmo like Ryan Johnson or Leslie Edlund, like a literate Star Wars creator, who understands the story, knows how the characters act, knows how it's paced, etc. So that's what happens when you have, good people making Star Wars. So, they all have problems, but they all kind of balance each other out, and if you balance them out enough, it would just be this perfect, like, really well done story, I wouldn't say perfect, because George is George, and he's otherworldly in his talent, and, it's his story in movies, so, not perfect, but it would be at the closest we could get, really. So that's what happens when you hire good people who know what they're doing, right? And Kathy just hires anybody. She just, I guess, if she likes them as a person, she hires them. Like, that's it. Like, oh, you're nice, you're sweet, you made a good movie, you made a good short film 20 years ago, so yeah, you can go contribute to the greatest franchise in the world with the greatest and most passionate fans in the world, and yeah, no problem. What? That's just what she does, though, that's just how she does it. She doesn't even do audition process, nothing. Like, they just walk in, they get links, and they're like, oh, I have connections, and then they get to her office at some point, and then that's just the end of it. They get hired. Okay, like, that's it. And I'm like, wow, that is something different, man. Like, imagine that, just walking onto a Star Wars project. Same with Leslie Edlund. not even doing a traditional casting call for actors and just hiring actors. What? Like, you never know. The Joe Schmo who's done nothing could be the best. Like, look at Hayden. When he did episode 2, he'd been in like one other movie, and that was it. And he was just a side character, and he just hadn't done much because he just was starting his career, like he had barely done anything. And then George saw the potential in him, and it was there because he did the proper casting protocol where you don't have any, I want this or that. You're just like, I need this kind of, I need someone to fulfill this character's needs. And you go off of that. You don't go off, ooh, I liked them in this movie. No, you hire off the character. It's like half the in Acolyte, I'm like, why are they in this show? It just, they're acting so bad. I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, that's just what I have to think. You have the talent of Hayden Christensen, and the talent of James Earl Jones and of Ian McDiarmid and, all these people, and Samuel L. Jackson. And then you go to, and Harrison Ford, and you just go to these random people that just were in a cool movie, and she thinks that that's great. Like, that is in film. Like, in the film industry, you don't do that. Ever. You always cast traditionally because that's how you get the right actors for the job. Always. It's hard. It takes time. It's draining. It gets old. But the result is 200 times better than, just picking someone because you liked them in a movie, which is what a lot of Hollywood does these days, is they're like, oh, he or she will make us money, come right here. We'll give you a giant paycheck and then you'll make us all the money because you were in this movie. Like, there's just no creativity or vision, in Hollywood anymore. It's really sad. And I feel the only fun left in Hollywood and joy is within Marvel and DC, and some, Universal and Warner Bros. Well, I guess no. Warner Bros. I don't have an issue with. Universal, I don't. Paramount's made good stuff. Lionsgate has made good stuff. Yeah, I guess it's just on and off. It's so on and off, and there's not. It's just weird because movies you used to have imagine going to the cinemas in 2008. Like, you're going every month. Iron Man, what's it called? The Dark Knight, right? Like, all these movies, Taken. Like, dude, there were so many movies in 2008 that came out that are huge. Even 2005, Revenge of the Sith, Batman Begins, bro, so many. A ton that I'm forgetting, right? But, now it's like there's one good movie a year. Last year it was Oppenheimer. That was the only one that and Across the Spider-Verse. Those were the two that I remember and were significantly good. The rest were throwaways. 2 a year. Like, what? And then now, this year, it's Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's it. I've not watched one other movie that I've genuinely loved or liked at all this year, Civil War was okay, but, I'm not going to go rewatch that and really dive into it and enjoy it, It's just not. We've had one of the entire year. I don't even get that. How is that even... Theaters don't make money. No one makes money. It's just bad. Just horrible. It's just so awful now. The entertainment industry is just tanking. And that's why I want to be one of the ones to help change it, because movies are incredibly important in the world. And if you write them right and you do them right, then they bring you profit and they bring the world profit in terms of not just money, but, of joy, of entertainment, of knowledge, of perspective, all these things. And they kind of just help you see yourself in these characters when they're written right, and it helps you have someone to relate to, right? It's like all these things, that cinema can do for somebody, and that it's done for me in the past and still does today. With those old characters and those older movies, right? It's like, I wish that was still here, and I wish that would still be continued, but it's just not. It's just such a disaster, dude. Like, really, there's no, they just justify psychopaths and create these flawless characters where they never make a mistake, and they're just in their peak in their first movie. It's like, all of that good character development's just gone. Like, you look at A24 and I'm just shaking my head the whole time. I'm like, we're really trying to make people want to be and relate to like these crazy just psychos and maniacs with all these mental problems. And it's like, I don't understand like who thinks that that's a good idea to show to the world, but it's just not. I get, it's such a whatever story, but it's really not that great at the end of the day. And I think their whole thing of, let me make you think, it's lazy writing, and it's an excuse for it, You can be mysterious in your movies, and do it well, but when you do it well, it's only for world building purposes. You're not doing it to help your plot, to help it make it easier for your plot. That's not why you are mysterious. And that's what A24 does. They just leave tons of plot holes and open endings on purpose to make you think, when it's really they just don't know how to write, So I do not like that studio in any way. They're a disaster. Never in a million years will you catch me, as an A24 employee. Oof. Yeah, no. Holy crap. Yeah, they are just part of the destruction of Hollywood, like genuinely. They are atrocious to cinema in general, and they have never made one masterpiece or even close to it in their entire, span. And especially, oh my gosh, Everything Everywhere All at Once, abysmal film. Just atrocious, man. It's just such a, trying to show what a good superhero movie would look like. And that's really the whole purpose of it, is to try to, take a dump on Marvel and DC, even though Marvel and DC do it 200 times better most of the time. It's just like, it felt like that, just a slap in the face to fans all around the world of those franchises, and it felt very intentional, and it also felt like, again, just, I don't care about any of those characters. I don't want to see them again. So that automatically shines a light on that too. And how those characters just weren't relatable to me in any way. I wouldn't look up to them. Right? Like, it's just not good, man. And they try to mock Marvel with using the multiverse. And it's just such a mockery of real superhero movies. And you could say, oh, but it's just better, and you don't know cinema, and screw off. Like, genuinely, if you're gonna say those things, like, it's someone's opinion, and you gotta just, you have to go home and rethink your life. At that point, you do, because you have issues. If that's the thing, because people who like A24, and this is something I've noticed, is they just think they get some level of respectability from liking that company, and they're so much more respectable than everyone else because they're an A24 fan, and they're so aesthetic, and they like using film and old ancient technology that was aged out for a really, really, really good reason, because guess what? It's old, it's shit, and it doesn't work, and it's bad, and we can improve from that by using digital cameras. Oh, I know some of you could be wincing right now at that thought. Making movies that are literate, and making movies that are fun, and making movies that don't want to, Yeah, don't make me think I'm watching a documentary about a psychopath. There's a lot about these Gen Z modern day filmmakers that it's scaring me, because I'm like, great, now it's just gonna get worse with what these people are doing. We don't want to watch a stupid film about your life trauma, and it's not even a film. It's just a video essay documentary. That's not a film, brother. I hate to break it to you. No one's gonna pay a ticket to see your tragic life story. Like, I'm sorry that you went through hardship, but frankly, when I'm going to watch a movie, I don't want to go pay for a video essay. I'm sorry. Like, really? Just go to therapy and that's it, man. Like, and make that, if you want to make it, put it on YouTube, but it doesn't go further than YouTube. That's kind of how I think about things. And those stupid movies where it's like the non-linear, with what Oppenheimer did, that was perfect. I don't have a problem with that. But what I mean by non-linear is that they don't have a firm plot, and it's purposefully floaty and all over the place, and you have to use your brain to analyze it for it to make sense. Like, cut that BS. Not everyone who watches movies is a film kid. I am. A lot of people are. But not the majority. Most people watch movies just purely for entertainment. They don't give a crap about how good the story is. They just want to be entertained. They are not going to be entertained by that horse crap. I'm going to be honest with you. And cut the stupid film. If you're going to use film, use the high resolution stuff that, Chris Nolan used. Because that's new technology. That hasn't been done before. And guess what? You don't have the budget for it. So use good quality. Use digital cameras. Like, Lord, please. What are you doing? You are wasting your money, and you're wasting your film's budget on an old technology that was aged out for a very good reason, right? And I just don't understand. I'm like, dude, you're wasting your money on stupid crap. But it looks so aesthetic. Okay, you know what, bud? Waste your money then. That's what I say to these people. I'm like, dude, if you're going to be that stupid and use outdated old technology to, make your film look better, to critics, and you're not going to go a lot of places with that. I'm going to be honest, because if your whole goal is to win awards and to please critics and please, those snotty, film bros, you're not gonna entertain anyone. No one's gonna see your stuff, because the movies that those people like they're just not very watchable, and they're just so boring, and you watch them once and that's it, right? It's like, I don't know, man, like, they're just not entertaining. It's just to where Oppenheimer was made by one of the best filmmakers of all time, and it was written in an entertaining way that we wanted to see what was going to happen next, and they did the nonlinear stuff in order to keep us entertained. And not only that, it was well written, well crafted, etc., had a beautiful score behind it. No issue there. That's the one of those, I guess, but that wouldn't even fit in the category I'm talking about. I don't know, but yeah, there's just way too many kids competing for A24, and it's like, guys, they're a tiny studio, and not all of you are going to be able to be a director and writer at A24. I'm sorry. Sorry. No creative vision. It's just, let me document my life in aestheticness, and now I will win Best Picture, and I will gain hundreds of fans. No, thousands of fans, millions of fans around the world, because I made an aesthetic video of my life. Ooh, wow, that is just incredible. Man, I can't wait to watch the aesthetic video of your life over and over again, because I'm so intrigued to see the film grain all over my screen for the next half an hour. Yeah, that's a great use of my time, ladies and gentlemen. Or I could make a good story shot with new cameras and new equipment and edited well with new softwares that look amazing, sound amazing, have a beautiful story with world building and with character development and with plot progression and a nice pace, and everyone likes it, well, not everyone. Most people like it, most people appreciate it, and it is something they remember. I prefer that way more over some stupid, what I like to call modern art display of your problems, which I think is fair. I honestly do. I think that's a fair assumption, because I've seen movies. I've been to festival before, and there are ones that I just don't remember anymore. Like, they're like, "Oh, do you remember that?" I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "What was it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the one about the girl whose family and this and that, and it was kind of like they really well edited." And I'm like, well, I don't care. It didn't entertain me. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care. Like, really, I don't. It's like, that stuff is great to express yourself and to get your feelings out, but it doesn't go further than that. So what I try to tell people is, they try to diss Marvel and diss Iron Man and diss Star Wars and diss DC and diss big studios and their movies, and it's like, dude, you don't understand that people just, every filmmaker has made something not good in their lifetime. Whether it was a big movie that they released or it was unreleased, every single one of them has. And the thing is that just because Marvel has made a few bad movies, and just because DC has made a few bad movies, just because, Disney Star Wars is a mess, doesn't mean that the original 6 films exist. They exist too, and they're objectively really well done. Same with Clone Wars and Mando, and it has rocked pop culture to an extent no other franchise has, to where everyone and their mother all over the world knows what Star Wars is. That just because they have some bad projects doesn't make them horrible franchises all of a sudden, that they're a disaster to Hollywood. That's just not true. We don't get Martin Scorsese films anymore. We don't get Francis Coppola films anymore. We don't get that really. We don't get Stanley Kubrick. We don't get Quentin Tarantino. Like, we don't get any of that anymore. That was an age of cinema that will be unmatched for the rest of time. There's no way we'll ever get cinema that good ever again, and George Lucas, Spielberg, all of them, it's just, brother, oh boy, yeah, cinema is so in the floor. And Deadpool and Wolverine was such just a nice, I walked out of that movie so, happy. I'm like, all right, this was not just a fan service movie, this had plot. It was a comedy, so it didn't have to be overtly serious. It's like it had all these things that, we did see, Deadpool's character progression, and the whole point of the movie was that he wanted to be remembered, and he wanted to be known, and he wanted to be a hero, right? And Wolverine was really, I guess, his push to being that hero, and unintentionally Wolverine kind of taught him how to be one, and they both leveled each other out, and that's the thing. And Deadpool is the one who kind of brought Wolverine back up from his drinking issues and, his depression, and they balanced each other out, and then at the end they're united, and they go to the TVA and they destroy the time thing. I forgot what it was called exactly. The MacGuffin of the film, as Deadpool said, which I thought was really funny. And they eliminate Cassandra Nova, and together, and the only way they're able to do it is together. That's plot progression, and then they both become the heroes they're meant to be. There is story, and there's a crap ton of world building. There's a crap ton of, notes left for, I guess, speculation and future, projects. but it felt totally complete and condensed, and that's perfect. That is a great movie to me, you know? And it was genuinely funny. It was, the jokes were, they made me laugh, and that's something for comedy that's really rare. I think most comedy is just junk, it's just horrible writing, and no, but this genuinely was a good film, and I'm appreciative of that, but that really shows that there are good filmmakers out there who know what they're doing, it's just the studios have some agenda and they don't want to hire these people. I don't know why, but they're like, it's not even that, because I don't know. I don't even know what's going on, man. I could speculate all day, but no one really knows what the heck is actually happening, in all these studios, and all of them, not just the big AAA, big budget studios, like all the, indie independent filmmakers like to say, all of you too, you all have problems too. Don't even try to slide through that. No, thank you. But anyways, we're in a really low point. And I feel if we have good Star Wars, we could, fish that right back up, because that is how influential Star Wars is, And if George were still making Star Wars, then that, fish hook, that would go way up, but unfortunately that's been tainted by Disney now. So people have non-fans and casuals have a different perception of Star Wars now. Most of them have stopped watching too, which is really scary. But I don't blame them. But yeah, it's just hire the right people, I guess, is the moral of the story. And we've learned, and you could be like, well, George hired Kathleen Kennedy. Well, he didn't know that she was going to screw up his company. He had no idea. He just was like, well, I've worked with her in the past. She's really strong. She knows what she's doing in terms of, putting these movies out there, and she's good at managing things and whatever. And then he thought of Dave as like the creative guy, and that's kind of how he thought about it. And he's like, well, I want to actually, have my own life and make my museum and raise my kid and, kind of lay low for, a while. And that's what he chose to do, and he entrusted her, and then she completely betrayed him. And she also promised that she'd keep him in the loop. That didn't happen. So now he's furious. He really is. He is not happy about the way things are, and people try to bring up the one stupid article where his agent supposedly said he liked The Last Jedi, but we've had confirmed sources tell us that is not true, and very, very, very confirmed sources as well. People very close to George have said that is absolutely not true, and that he doesn't like, any of the stuff that Disney's, made. He publicly didn't like The Force Awakens, and he publicly hates Disney, and he didn't show up to the Rise of Skywalker premiere. There's been a lot of things that have, happened that people don't catch up on or notice, and how the only sets he was showing up on were Mando, right? That's he had to sign an NDA, with Disney after the white slavers comment. Unfortunately, because, it was a threat to Disney's, I guess, prestige at that time. So Disney made him sign an NDA, and he can't give his take publicly on anything anymore, basically, which is ridiculous. But, about a specific project. But he can say they don't know how the Force works, which is pretty much what he said at festival, the Cannes Film Festival in France. And he said that his kind of idea for the plot and the story has gotten lost. He said all those things. So he's confirming what all of us have been saying and supporting for years. And that's him being nice and being sneaky around the NDA thing, you know, like that's, and from what he said there, like that's really, it's a lot, you know, and I can only imagine what he'd really say if he didn't have that NDA, you know, and what he really, really thinks. And we know that he is not happy with any of it, you know, that has really been released. Yeah, and I in my dreams wish that man would come back and make a project to kind of set people straight. But, you know, I don't think he will. I think he's moved past it. He said that he's moved past it, and I really don't think that that's going to happen. You know, there was a while where, what's his name? Roger Christian said that George is involved in some live action series. I don't know. That's just so, it's incredible to believe. And, you know, he's a great source because he's friends with George, but I think, maybe, but, you know, who knows? He could have seen that, like, on some weird website or something, you know, who knows where that came from. But, you know, I wish that, I wish he'd come back because we really need him, you know, and right now especially. And Rick McCallum, too, he knows so much about Star Wars. He was the producer of the prequel trilogy, and he is insanely talented at what he does. And he left the company, you know, he was basically like, it's ride or die with George, and if George isn't there, then I'm gone, and he left. So he's out making, I think, independent films, on his own, I guess. But yeah, he was amazing. Like, genuinely, if we brought him and George together again, oh my goodness, like, we would be back in full force, you know, like, really. You know, or just George alone. Yeah, I don't think that's probably not gonna happen, you know, and it's stupid to get all hopeful about that, 'cause it's just in reality. No, I just really can't picture a world where that would happen. But Shawn Levy has made a statement on his Star Wars movie, and it sounds great. It genuinely sounds like Star Wars. You know, it's not, I want it to make it all diverse and garbage. I really wanted to craft something that felt organic to me, both in tone and characters, so I think that there is certainly the Force and a connection to something bigger than ourselves. And the way that can make us powerful, those themes combined with visual delight and wish fulfillment, that's Star Wars to me. That is a great quote. You know, so I'm very excited to see what he makes. And, you know, after Deadpool and Wolverine, I feel like he knows how much these franchises mean to people and that he's ready to deliver, you know, so I'm excited for that, man. I wish him the best in that process, and I hope that he really, you know, dives into Star Wars. It sounds like he knows the bare bones of it, and I hope he knows the meat, too. So, I'm ready, man. I think his project will be pretty good. I genuinely do. I don't have a lot of doubts with this project after Deadpool and Wolverine. I really don't. So, I'm excited to see what he does, and yeah, and I'm worried about what else is coming out, you know, and I hope Mando and Grogu is good and that Kathy didn't rush John again, and I hope that, you know, yeah, and I know the Rey movie is gonna be complete garbage, and I don't really need to hope for that to be good, because it's not. You know, I hate to be closed-minded, but it's just true. It's gonna be bad, and I can guarantee that, you know. And Skeleton Crew, I saw the images. It just seems like it's so, again, kind of like Andor doesn't matter to the universe, that it'll just be like, you know, but who knows? I don't think it looked weird to me in the images. It looked Star Trek-y, and I don't know. It wasn't great. I wasn't blown away. There's nothing to talk about, but and Outlaws looks like trash. So, you know, we're not in a good place with Star Wars, but I think Shawn Levy's movie and hopefully Mando and Grogu should help. give us something to appreciate a little, you know, and that would be great. So thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, share. I will see you in the next video. Until the next one, may the force be with you always.